doing that a lot is validation seeking behavior. And uh, it's not masculine to be constantly seeking validation. Like it's actually that's more of a feminine trait to be looking for validation and attention all the time. And so if you're that guy, women start looking at that going, I don't know why, but it's unattractive. It's because it goes against the nature, right?
Today, we are speaking with Paul Bauer. Paul Bauer is the host of Come On Man podcast. He's also an author of 3 books, and he's a relationship coach. Paul, could you please introduce yourself and let people know just a little more about you, please?
Yeah, Ed, thank you for having me on your show today. I really appreciate it. Yeah, a lot of people when I go on other people's shows, they want to hear the Batman origin story. Like, who is this guy? Why should I care what he has to say? I get it. Well, a little bit about me. I grew up in rural Colorado on the eastern slope in the foothills outside of Denver. I was always pretty good with women, I would say. Like when I was in high school, I always had dates. Uh, lost my virginity at 16, but I was always the kind of guy that had what we call a sniper mentality, which means the first girl that's nice to you, you go all in on her. You're immediately monogamous with her and you're like, okay, I'm going to pursue this girl and she's the one for me. She's my soulmate or whatever. And so I had a lot of soulmates early on there, and ended up I ended up leaving for the U.S. Navy. I'm a former sailor, and I left for the Navy when I was 18. And 2 years into my enlistment, I went home on leave, and I met my now ex-wife, and it was the same thing. I met her through some mutual friends, and I spent that whole week with her when I was on leave, just getting to know her, and ended up going back to my ship, which was in San Diego. She was here in Colorado, and we had this long distance relationship for almost a year before I convinced her to move out to San Diego with me. And so she moved out to San Diego, and we only really knew each other in person for about 3 months before we ended up eloping, which is a big mistake. But when you're young and you're in love and you're rushing for that white picket fence, that tends to happen, right? Well, the problem with not knowing someone much longer than that is you overlook red flags. You never really get to see who they truly are, because in most relationships there's a 6 month to a year honeymoon phase where everyone's on their best behavior. Well, but we rushed into that because I was getting ready to go on a couple of deployments, a 3 month training deployment out in Hawaii, and then come back for a month. And then I was going to be gone for 6 months on a real deployment out in the Middle East. And so I wanted to make sure that she was taken care of, because that's your job as a man, right? You have to protect and provide. And I wanted to make sure that she was okay. And so she had insurance, and if something happened to me, she would get my life insurance, because by God, I was in love, Ed, and I wanted to make sure she was taken care of, right? Well, we get married, and luckily we did get along very well, at least in the beginning. And we ended up being married for 14 years. And the first 7 years were actually pretty good. And we ended up having two wonderful children out of it. My daughter's now 20. She's off in college now. And my son, he's turning 16 at the end of the month. He's a sophomore in high school, and he's getting ready to get his driver's license. Great kids. But man, after that 7 year mark, things started really going downhill. And man, we got to a place in the relationship where I would work like 17-hour days just to avoid her. Because I knew And that when I got home, I was gonna get an earful about how I wasn't doing things good enough and everything was wrong, and that she had a million, honey-do chores for me, and I was just like, "I'm not dealing with this. I'm just gonna focus on work." So I'd work late hours, come home, go to bed. There was nights where I didn't like her so much that instead of I didn't even want to sleep in the same room as her. I would go out to my garage. I would grab a cot. I'd go sleep in my office. I was like, I don't even want to be around you, you know. But I was also the kind of guy who was raised that vows are mean something, you know. So I was never going to divorce her. I was never going to give up. I was just resolved to be miserable in this relationship until the end of life because that's how my dad does it, right? My dad and my mom are still together. They're coming up on their 50th wedding anniversary. They hate each other. They they're together at this point just to spite each other, you know. And my both sets of grandparents never got divorced, so I was like, this is just how life is. I developed this paradigm that yeah, you're happy in the beginning, you have a couple of kids, and then you're supposed to be miserable, a miserable workhorse for the rest of your life, you know? And bless her heart, after 14 years, she had enough of it, and she wasn't raised the same way. Her mom and dad split, when she was young, and so she didn't have the same qualms about going and filing for divorce, and she ended up filing for divorce, and honestly for me it was a big weight lifted off my chest because she had the guts to go do it. But then I found myself 50 pounds overweight, back on the dating circuit, in my mid 30s. It's a totally different world out here now, because when she and I met, there were no dating apps, there was no social media. We actually had to go out when we were in high school and get in the car with a bunch of our boys and go hollering at girls who were also in cars hollering at guys, right? So, or go down to the mall or to the skating rink or whatever. And now it's a totally different world. And I just floundered, man. I floundered on the dating circuit. This was in 2014. Floundered on the dating circuit for almost a whole year, about 11 months, before I found another gal who sort of I call her a chubby chaser. She sort of took pity on me, gorgeous gal, but she really liked me, and I same patterns emerged. I was like, oh, I'm going all in. I like this girl. First girl that's nice to me. I'm going all in. Ended up in this relationship that I probably shouldn't have been in for 4.5 years. And the problem with that is immediately the same things that caused the attraction to erode in my marriage, I started being that guy in this relationship. I immediately started going into husband mode where I thought I reached this imaginary finish line and I didn't have to try anymore. And for her, she checked out much faster. She checked out mentally about 2 years into that relationship. And what a lot of guys don't realize is when a woman mentally checks out from a relationship, they can do that up to 2 years before filing for divorce, before breaking up with you, whatever. And what they tend to do in that time is they start socking money away, they start lining up male orbiters, they start making a basically an exit strategy, and sometimes it takes a while. And so for her, she was doing that pretty much the last 2 years of the relationship, and right near the end, she started acting so bad that I finally was like, I can't deal with this anymore, and I ended up breaking up with her. And I came to find out a while later that she was actually cheating on me at the end of that relationship, which was a big sort of eye opening moment for me. But that time back on the dating circuit, this was in 2019. I had a much easier time, Ed. Because I had lost all the weight. I'd lost while I was in that relationship. I got back into fitness. I lost all the 50 pounds. I was actually in really good shape. So I was able to get dates real easy this time. But I couldn't keep women around more than like 2 or 3 dates. And I was like, what am I doing wrong here? Like the two biggest relationships in my life failed. I can't keep women around longer than 2 or 3 dates before they ghost me. Like I'm clearly the problem. I'm clearly the common denominator here. And one of the biggest blessings of that relationship, that second relationship, the 4.5 year one, I refer to her as Red Pill Chick, is that she was really big into self help books and audiobooks. And she was always listening to this kind of stuff. And I go, man, I bet you there's some books out there, some audiobooks I could study to figure out what I'm doing wrong. And so I took a deep dive in intersexual dynamics. I took a deep dive into the psychology of attraction, understanding where women were coming from and stuff. And so through that process and applying that in the dating world, I ended up in a men's group on Facebook called the 3% Man Group, where we were all studying a book called How to Be a 3% Man by Corey Wayne. And out of that group, I created my podcast, the Come On Man podcast. And it initially started as me interviewing other guys in the group who were trying to level up and get better with women. And the funny thing that we all realized, the guys that actually put the work in, is that when you level up to get better with women, it tends to make you better men in all areas of your life. It's almost like women make us better, you know? Just the qualities that women find attractive make you better in business. It makes you better in your social life. It's kind of an interesting phenomenon. It's like men and women really are meant to complement each other in that way. And so anyway, I started the podcast, and from the podcast, it started getting bigger. I started interviewing more guys in the space, and from there, I ended up getting invited on a panel show on Saturdays with some of the more prominent guys in what we call the red pill space. I don't know if you're familiar with red pill, but I got invited on a panel show by a guy named Rollo Tomasi, who wrote a really phenomenal book series called the Rational Male book series, and went under the learning tree of all the guys in that group because they're all very seasoned, mentors in the space, guys that coach men, psychologists, and stuff like that. And ended up starting coaching men myself. And so I've been doing that for the last several years now. I'm in a wonderful relationship now that's going on 5 years, and it's effortless just because of everything that I've learned, and I apply it every day in my relationship. Like we've been together, like I said, going on 5 years now. We've never once had a real argument, not a serious argument. Which when I talk to people about that, they're like, "That how's that possible?" And I'm like, "It's possible. It's possible when you learn." Relationship skills, and a lot of us have never been taught relationship skills. It's actually a thing that we tend to learn from our parents, from our upbringing. We see how mom and dad interact with each other. We never actually really sit down and study, how to properly communicate, because men and women communicate differently. So there's some tricks there. So anyway, after learning all that stuff, now I help men, and one of the things that really motivated me, it was something that clicked with me last year, was a lot of guys find their way into the space because they're in a position I was years ago, where they're married, they'll never give up, but their relationship is not where they want it to be. A lot of guys are in a dead bedroom situation, and a lot of guys find their way to the space because they're trying to find out, how do I get my wife to have sex with me again, right? Like my wife hasn't had sex with me in months, or if she does, she's not into it. How do I get her like this, right? It's all about changing her. And so a lot of guys find their way to the space, and they realize it's not her, it's you, and how you show up in the relationship and how you lead that relationship. And so I decided I'm going to help men in that situation never have to go through what I went through.
Paul, very interesting story going on. I want to start with thank you for serving our country. It's top in my life. I really appreciate people that take the time to do that. The Come On Man podcast basically is to help yourself grow as you help others grow. Is that correct?
That's really what it started out as, and I'll tell you why. Because a lot of people, what I found in the space is they'll study this stuff, right? They'll read the books just long enough to get into their next relationship, right? Or just long enough in order to get their wife to act a certain way. Then they'll stop, and then they will fall back on old programming, because a lot of people don't realize this, is that We are our actions and our results in life come from our paradigm, our subconscious mind. And so we have this paradigm of how relationships should be, that's been programmed in us all our lives, and you can't undo 20, 30, 40 years of programming after reading a book once, you know? And so wh- so one of the things that I realize is I have to constantly study this material, and one of the things that forces me to have to keep this stuff on the forefront so I never fall back into complacency is the podcast. The podcast forces me to keep studying this stuff, so it's always on the forefront of my mind. I always have to come up with new episodes, and so yeah, it really started out as a way for me to keep this on the forefront of my mind, and then it just blew up as a way to help other men. And then I've just found that helping other men is just extremely rewarding, and it's become a mission of mine in life. And every man needs a mission or a purpose in life, or else he's going to fall stagnant. uh, he's going to get just let life happen to him. That actually ends up being making you really unattractive. Women really like a guy that has a mission, a purpose, a sense of ambition and drive, and something that makes him want to get up in the morning. That's attractive to women, and a lot of guys aren't like that. They just, they get to a place. I got a job now. I work 9 to 5. I come home, I crack open a couple of beers. I try to get my wife sleep with me. She rejects me, whatever. I go to sleep, wake up, rinse, wash, repeat. That's their lives. It's extremely boring. Women hate that. And that's why women start nagging. When a woman's nagging you, that's a sign. That's a sign. She's not trying to be mean. She's trying to snap you out of complacency.
I have been with my wife 42 years, married 40 years, and I've been the roller coaster up and down. And really, until I hit 50 years old, I had no clue of what the heck I was doing. And, my wife got fed up with it several times, and I had no clue. And until I really was put on a spot and I found myself broken, then I started to really understand, well, maybe this is me. Like you stated in your run up here, that's really where it starts, finding that awareness and understanding maybe you're not the same person that your wife met. And through getting complacent with life, maybe you've slacked here and there. Figuring that out is hard. And then also, communication, like you said, different worlds, men and women, big time. We're different creatures and we think different, we act different, our emotions come out different. This is hard, especially if you're a young man. And, I it was one of the hardest things in my life when I had to tell my wife, fuck off. This isn't the way it's going to be. And when I was able to do that in a loving way, that's when my life started getting better. And this what do you call it? Betatization. It really is a thing, and you've got to be on top of who you are, what you are, and why you're that person. What is your goal in life? Having a goal. If you don't, stagnation, it slides in quick, and that's not attractive. It gets redundant, boring, and it causes conflict. So, understanding who your partner is very important. And that means being blunt, getting straight to the point as quick as possible. And that way you know who you're dealing with. Because sometimes, like you stated, it takes years to understand who you're with. And that's part of that complacency, isn't it?
It is. And I like how you said it's really hard. It's really hard for a young man. My first book is called Everything I Wish I Knew When I Was 18, because after I learned all this stuff, it was just like a slap in the face. Like, why? Like, I wish someone would have told me this coming out of high school. That it's almost a science, you know. It really is. A lot of so I come out of the red pill space. Red pill started as guys swapping notes in pickup forums, right? How to get women to sleep with them quick, right? And what these guys found was there was all these tricks that tended to work really well. And so then these other guys came in with evolutionary psychology to try to explain, okay, well, we know this works. We know women respond to this. Why? Right. And so they came in with evolutionary psychology to try to explain it. So it really is a science. And one of the things that I found is that a lot of people think that love is this thing that just sort of magically sort of happens. It works like clockwork. If you apply it, like in the dating process, right? You apply it in a strategic way. Men can actually, you can watch guys progress through this. Every guy that I've ever watched study this, it's like clockwork, right? So one of the things that we found is that if you in the beginning you don't push for a relationship, right? You be the one that you only see her once a week. You don't try to occupy all of her time. That's what a lot of guys do. They find a girl that's nice. They try to see her 10 times a week, like the first week, right? Well, you don't do that. You act like you're busy and you try to be really busy, right? Be a man of purpose. You go out there, you only see her once a week, you wait a couple of days to let her wonder about you. You don't text her all day long, you're play by play, like I just ate a ham sandwich, like she doesn't care. So you be a mystery and you'll find that women will start chasing you. Like if they really like you and they're trying to figure you out, that actually draws them in and makes them more attracted to you. So you only see them once a week for the first couple of weeks until she really wants to start seeing you a lot. Then she's going to reach out to you more. Hey, I was just thinking about you. Hey, I just saw this meme that made me think of you, or whatever. That's women chasing you. It's funny because women are very subtle. They don't openly ask men out, they don't openly pursue men because that's not in their nature. They're very passive. So the way women will chase you is they just sort of put themselves in your orbit and hope you ask them out, right? And so you just got to recognize this as a guy, and when you realize that that's what's happening, you say, "Oh, hey, when are you free to get together?" And you meet up with her. By the seventh or eighth date, on average, women are usually in love and pushing for exclusivity. By the seventh or eighth date, and it's like clockwork, just like I said. It's a fascinating thing. You'll find that in the modern era, women will sleep with you by the second or third date on average. So it's like you don't have to be constantly trying to seduce her all the time. If she likes you, she's going to be pushing for that sort of thing. It's very fascinating. And so what you'll find is it works the same way in relationships. And you mentioned the betatization process. The betatization process is I have a free ebook for guys out there. If they go to my website, fixeddeadbedrooms.com, they can get it. It's the ebook's called She's Made You Weak. And this is why attraction tends to erode over time. Most men don't even know it's happening, but it's a part of a woman's evolutionary wiring to where they will test you. We call these shit tests or frame checks or fitness tests. Like there's lots of different words for it. It's the same thing, but women will subtly, they don't even know they're doing it half the time. It's a very subconscious thing, but they will test you to see if they can push your buttons, if they can get you mad, if they can make you change your plans, if they can manipulate you in any certain way. And if you fail these tests, she starts losing respect for you. And a woman can't love a man she doesn't respect. And then the next part of the process is trying to get you to be more vulnerable. Like I need you to open up to me. Like tell me all your deepest, darkest secrets. And then what a lot of women will do is if there's continuing to lose respect for you, they use that against you. It's really a dirty tactic, right? And so It's bad, yeah, and then one of the things that they do, which isn't a bad thing, is they try to put you to work, right? So this is where a woman will get behind you and motivate you to get a better job, to go for that next promotion, basically to put you to work so that you're providing for her and the children. Right. And that's not a bad thing because you'll find that, oh, a good woman will push you to move to the next level. Men are inherently lazy, and that comes from our evolutionary wiring too, because our ancestors were rewarded for laziness, conserving calories, not spending all day chasing lions and stuff. Right. Like the people that just, gathered what they needed and just like hunkered down survived. And so we're sort of wired to be more lazy, and women are more wired to push us, right? And so that's not a bad thing. But what will happen is guys will go too hard on the provider side stuff, and they will be workhorses. They will go all in on their work. They'll make sure that they're bringing home the bacon, they're taking care of their children, being good dads. Women don't necessarily find that attractive, though. They don't find that sexually attractive, and so what they'll find is that they they're no longer responding sexually to you anymore. And then now they're not getting their sexual needs met, but they're sexual beings too. But they don't find you sexually attractive anymore because now you're this beta, provider workhorse. And so that's where their evolutionary selfishness starts taking in. They start nitpicking at things you do. You're not doing things good enough. They keep making you work and work and work until but they're trying now to find a guy that's more sexually attractive, and that's where their evolutionary selfishness takes in, and they tend to uh, give you the "I love you, but I'm not in love with you anymore," and then they're either cheating on you or filing for divorce. Right? An erosion over time that's subconscious. They don't even know they're doing it, and if you're as a man don't realize it's happening to you, you don't know how to defend against it. I kind of jokingly call it defending against the dark arts. But it all starts with the testing process. So one of the things that I teach men when I coach them is how to recognize a woman's test, like things that they'll say, things that they'll do. And like a good rule of thumb is to assume everything she says or does is a test and act accordingly. you know, and there's different ways that you can handle women's tests. Like two of the biggest ones is what we call agree and amplify, and the other one is act indifferent. And a lot of it, the testing, like I said before, is about seeing if she can throw you off center, seeing if she can get you up in your emotions, right? Like see if she can push your buttons enough that you yell at her. But another thing is seeing if she can manipulate you, get you to change your plans. And so that's where being able to tell a woman, no, no, we're doing things my way, right? She might get mad and throw a fit, and a lot of guys like will do anything to avoid any kind of tension in the relationship. But you got to understand that tension's required for her to be attracted to you. So you embrace it and be able to tell her no, let her have her fit. Don't climb on her emotional roller coaster, and you'll find 30 minutes later she's crawling in your lap, you know. so um but a lot of that is just her testing your strength, right? Is he a good leader? Is he going to set the tone and lead this relationship and let me relax into my feminine? But most guys let their wives get in the driver's seat. Then I saw a joke the other day where a guy goes, I could never cheat on my wife because she would have to plan it and then remind me about it. Right. That's a woman being in charge of the relationship, being the one that sets the tone and leads. And that puts her in her masculine energy, which isn't natural to her, which makes her resent you for it, which causes attraction to erode. So it's like, you can't do that. You have to be the leader. You have to be the one that sets the tone and leads that relationship.
Yeah, I believe that a lot. I really think there's a lot of this natural behavior going on, and it's frustrating because, you know, the mainstream media is telling all these young people one thing, and yet it's totally opposite of the reality of the situation. We are biological creatures, and we have these certain urges, desires, and that's generalizing. There's these offshoots, but generally everybody is like everybody else. And that's kind of the thing that makes us a tribe. So we really have to dig into that and understand that simplicity is just what you said. Very simple to survive. And if you can get back to that simplicity in living, that is really key. And I think our world now, it has us motivated in the wrong directions. We are running for money and fame and attention. Everybody wants attention. We're looking for it in the wrong places, is what I feel. What's your take on that?
Well, what do you mean we're looking for attention in the wrong places? You're like on social media, the like getting the fake internet points.
Yes, I think that is, yes, that is very key, Paul, because we are finding ourselves moving more in the direction of digital world, but our biological body needs to be looking for interaction in the real world. We used to have picnics, and we'd have these social interactions in the park, and people would meet and gather, and that's how we used to get all of our social interactions. Now it's generally online. So there is this diminished.
Oh, there it is, and it impacts us all in different ways. A lot of the social media, it's all dopamine addiction too. you know, when you post something online and you're like constantly checking back, like how many views do I get? How many likes did I get? That's all dopamine addiction, and the way it manifests itself in lots of different negative ways. For men who get addicted to social media and posting so that they get the fake internet points and stuff like that. What a lot of guys don't realize is that, especially if they're trying to be more attractive for their wives or girlfriends, is doing that a lot is validation seeking behavior. And uh, it's not masculine to be constantly seeking validation. Like it's actually that's more of a feminine trait to be looking for validation and attention all the time. And so if you're that guy, women start looking at that going, I don't know why, but it's unattractive. It's because it goes against the nature, right? And then a problem with women having being putting on putting themselves out there on social media is that they do get a lot of attention, especially if they're attractive, right? They'll get a lot of attention from other men, and then their hypergamous nature, um, which is fascinating. There's this concept called hypergamy, right? And women's sexual strategy is hypergamy, and hypergamy is where a woman is typically trying to look for her best possible option, right? And a part of that is she wants a guy who's sexually attractive. We call those, those types of traits alpha traits. A lot of guys don't like the concepts of alpha and beta, but you can say sexually attractive and not sexually attractive, right? So they're looking for a guy that's sexually attractive, but who's also kind and nurturing, right? And that the kind and nurturing is the beta traits. They want a guy with both traits. Um, and so that's going to be their best possible option, a guy that has a solid mixture of both. And what women, if they can't get one thing in their relationship, like maybe they do have the beta provider guy, right? That's where they put him to work and they made him the solid workhorse. Now he's the beta provider guy. Now they're looking for, that's why they cheat. They'll cheat with the pool boy who's more sexually attractive. Well, the thing is about being on social media is now they have a whole world open to them of guys who are just constantly giving them validation, telling them that they're beautiful, like, oh, you're so gorgeous. And there's all these, we call them simps in the space, where they're just constantly putting these women on pedestals. So they get this inflated ego, and now they get this over inflated sense of self, where now they're looking at the guy they're with, who, if you didn't have social media, he probably would be her best possible option in her immediate vicinity. But now she's got this worldwide thing where she's being told constantly how great she is and how beautiful she is and how she's like a 10, and she's going to start looking at her average husband and go, "Oh, I could do better than this." And then her hypergamous nature is going to start seeking that out elsewhere. And then that's where like we have this really, you know, bad we have bad divorce rates now. People can't seem to stay together. Relationships are in shambles. A lot of it is fueled by social media.
Yes. I believe that 100%. It's really a good thing what we're doing here today, Paul, is, educating the younger people that, hey, it's not real what we're dealing with in this world. So, this is just a natural feeling that you're having. It's okay to be you. And that I really feel will help build young people to a better standing or understanding anyway.
I agree. And going back to the social media thing, when I realized that posting on social media and trying to get likes and stuff like that was attention seeking behavior, I really did a self evaluation of my personal social media, and I realized I was that guy. I was posting like every dinner I had, everywhere I went. It was always selfies and whatever. And I immediately cut that out. If you are someone that's like my one of my close friends and you follow me on social media, you probably never see me post anymore. Like never. Like my personal social media is completely dead. My professional social media is very active because it's marketing really. It's trying to get people to the podcast or to the books or to the coaching. So I have to post. It's not really attention seeking behavior, it's business. But 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 I'll see it cuz I'm on TikTok a lot, and I see guys, making these videos for no reason other than to get internet points, and I'm just like, "Man, if you just cut that out, your wife would like you better," And then women, if they you stop putting, sexy pics online and started, really saving that for your relationship, and really maybe only post, yeah, maybe only post things that are like family updates that are important, so that, grandma knows what's going on. That kind of stuff's okay. But if you're putting like thirst traps up, which a lot of women do, they'll put like sexy pictures of themselves up there just so they can get other guys' attention. That's going to hurt your marriage. That's going to hurt your relationship. So it would behoove both genders to not do that so much. Pull back from social media and be more present in your relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, and that should carry on into your personal life behavior, all of that. Moderation in everything that we do is key. So it happens with alcohol, and all behavior depends on moderation. I want to touch by setting boundaries. I really feel that a good relationship has healthy boundaries, and both partners should understand the boundaries within the relationship. What is your understanding of boundaries, Paul?
Boundaries are paramount, but a lot of people don't really have a good understanding of boundaries. Boundaries aren't for them. Like boundaries are for you. It's rules and values you set for yourself of what you're willing to tolerate and what you're not. And a lot of people don't know how to set boundaries very well. There's effective ways of doing it, and like a good example, right? Because one of the things that we talk about in the red pill space is for men, women are typically drawn to a guy who has a dominant masculine presence, right? Being dominant doesn't necessarily mean domineering, like being controlling and stuff like that. That's not a good attractive feature. But a lot of guys, when they're setting boundaries, they will be controlling, right? So, for example, a a guy might not want his wife going out with her single hoe friends, which is a good boundary to have, because a woman that is going out with her single friends, if she has 5 single friends, she's going to go out and act single, and that's typically how cheating starts. If she goes out and hangs out with, if she's in a committed relationship, or if she's married, she goes out and hangs out with married women that are typically happy in their marriage, that's going to be, good, feedback loop, positive feedback loop for her. Like, you should encourage that. But if she's like, if you don't want her going out with her single hoe friends, a domineering guy will say you are forbidden from going out with your single hoe friends, right? But a good way to set that boundary where it's not controlling, and you're just being clear with, hey, this is a boundary of mine, is by saying, I can't be in a relationship with a woman that goes out with her single hoe friends, because that's you. Like, I can't do that. You're free to do it, but we can't be together, you know? And so that's a decision you have to make. And that's a good way of setting that, by being clear, like, hey, I don't tolerate this, you know? And so that's one way of doing it. There's a really phenomenal book I highly recommend everyone read. It's not one of mine, but it's one that I have my coaching clients read. Is called When I Say No, I Feel Guilty. I think it came out, I want to say it came out in the 70s. Uh, it's a phenomenal book. It starts off with your assertive Bill of Rights. It teaches you how to communicate assertively, um, effectively. And so a lot of people think being assertive means being aggressive, like you have to yell at your wife and tell her, no, you can't do this, right? No, you don't have to do that at all. You can be very calm and still be assertive. And he teaches lots of techniques in that book. And one of them, when it comes to setting boundaries, that's probably your number one tool in the toolbox, is what we call broken record, where you set the boundary, which is, I don't date women that go out with their single hoe friends. And she starts arguing about it. Oh, you're being insecure and da 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 da, or whatever. And you say, maybe I am being insecure, but I don't date women that go out with their single hoe friends. So the broken record is, you just keep repeating the phrase over and over again until they get it, And people typically, sometimes, like, the first couple of times you do it, especially if you're one of those people that are, used to manipulative language being used on you, and you do feel guilty for telling people no and stuff like that, it's going to feel uncomfortable the first few times you do it, but then it becomes second nature. And a lot of the stuff that I teach guys is, I want it to become a habit. I want it to become a part of your new paradigm of having a dominant masculine presence, because you'll do it without even thinking about it then. Um, but but it's going to feel uncomfortable at first, and it just, like anything else in life, if you want to get good at it, it takes practice. But yeah, it's a phenomenal book. It tells you how to, like, if your wife gets angry and starts yelling at you, how to stay calm and centered in those circumstances. Because, like we talked about before with the shit tests, if she can get you mad and angry and push your buttons, and you get mad, you fail her tests, and then she loses respect for you. But if you are able to stay calm, like, the most calm person wins. If you can stay calm and be able to interact with her despite her being mad and yelling and whatever, you're going to win, and she's going to have more respect for you. And the more respect she has for you, the more in love with you she's going to be. The more she's going to see you as her best hypergamous option, the longer your relationship's going to last. So it ends up compounding. All this stuff compounds, and the ability to be able to tell your wife no and set boundaries is huge. She likes that structure. I was talking with another guy, and he said it very well. He said, imagine walking through a cave, and it's dark in there and you can't see very well. Uh, as long as you can feel the sides of the cave, you feel a little more secure. Like, okay, I might be able to get through this. I can kind of feel my way out of this. But if you go and push on the cave wall, and the cave wall's collapsing, you're not going to feel safe. You're going to be like, oh my God, I'm in a dark cave. I can't see anything. The walls are caving in. Boundaries are the same thing for your wife or your girlfriend. She's like in a cave, because women, with their emotions, it's like they're the wind. And so they like, one of the reasons why they like male masculine leadership is because it provides structure to their chaos. And so if you can apply boundaries, you are providing the walls in the cave for her to feel more safe and secure in the relationship. Being able to tell her no provides structure, and that makes her feel more safe and secure. And it's fascinating. One of my mentors in the space, a guy named Dr. Robert Glover, he's written some really phenomenal books. One of the things that he said that he had to learn, like, because he's been, I think he's on his third marriage. He finally figured it out after his third marriage, but his after his second marriage, his wife told him, "Look, if you can't stand up to me, how can I trust you to stand up for me?" Like that's how a lot of women think. And so if you can't tell her no, if you can't stand up to her nagging and whatever and be able to sort of, lovingly put her in her place, she won't respect you, and then she can't love you, and she doesn't trust your leadership, and she doesn't feel safe and secure in the relationship. And at the end of the day, women are security seeking creatures that respond to strength. And if you can recognize that and provide that structure, like, she can relax into her feminine, and things will be swimming in your relationship.
That was solid advice right there, and you laid it out well. I like the collapsing cave walls in the dark. That paints a good picture, and it's very challenging when you're in the heat of the moment and that feminine chaos hits you. Uh, it took me years and years to figure out how to stay calm in that storm, and really it does help not only your wife's attitude, but it helps yourself, and it gives yourself understanding of the chaos that the world that surrounds you throws at you every day. And really, that's back to that natural feeling of security. That sense of security is very important. It's not everything, but
Oh, I was going to say, well, that's one of the big reasons why women test you, though. They're testing to see if they can, push your buttons and throw you off center and manipulate you, because she needs to know that life's challenges, that you're going to be able to handle them and lead the family through that. And if you can't handle her women's nonsense, like, how are you going to handle life's bigger challenges? Like, that's really where it comes from. And it's like women don't even know they're doing it. And so the sooner men realize what's happening and how to handle it, like, the better the relationships are going to be.
Paul, that's very key. Sometimes when women are in that chaotic state, they don't even realize they're there. They're just reacting the way that their subconscious mind tells them to react. So we're back into that. You got to understand the feminine mind, and you have to understand the male mind model to really live in a harmonious situation, a relationship. It's quite interesting how it all works. Our time is running short. Uh, do you have anything you want to add to our conversation, Paul?
I'll just say final thoughts on this is the number one thing I think guys, if they want to start turning their relationship around and start fixing things, is learning how to handle women's tests. In my coaching program, we start working on that on week 2. Like, week 1, we look at what we do is we do what I call a relationship autopsy. We look at what your relationship used to be like, where it is now, and where you think it started going downhill, and we start evaluating that. But week 2, we talk about handling women's tests, because as soon as a guy learns how to handle her tests, he immediately puts himself back at the beginning of the betaization process, back where she's starting to test again. And as soon as you start passing those tests, that's when her hamster wheel starts running again, going, wait a second, I don't know what he's doing, but I like it. I had I had a client who he and his wife, they hadn't had sex in like 6 months, and they were constantly fighting, all this stuff. And on week 2, I told him what to do. And I told him to have fun with it, because the agree and amplify part is where you sort of take whatever she says and you jokingly agree with her and then bring it up to an absurd level and just make a big joke out of it, right? And basically you're not taking her seriously. Well, he did that to his wife, and after that session, he she was testing him in some way. He did the agree and amplify and had fun with it, and he reported back. He goes, "I'm not in a dead bedroom anymore, bro." I was like, boom, week 2. Like, that's all that, for a lot of guys, that's all it takes, is just handling her test. So I would highly recommend you learn how to do that. One way guys can do that, if they get my latest book, it's called Get Her to Fuck You Again. It's a red pill guide to fix a dead bedroom. That came out in January. It's also available on Audible. So if you prefer to listen to it on audio, it's available on Audible too. And then if guys read that book and they're still having challenges, I highly recommend that they book a call with me. It's free. If you go to call.fixdeadbedrooms.com, they can book a call with me. And if I can help you with your situation, I'll show you what that looks like. And if I can't, I'll at least point you in the right direction.
Great, great. So, do you have a call to action for people?
The call to action would be to get the book, because I was talking with this guy today on a lot of guys like DM me and stuff, and this guy DM me about a video like a couple of weeks ago. And a lot of the guys that I work with one on one, they've been married for over 5 years. They've had some serious problems and stuff like that. This guy hadn't been married, or I think he's still dating. He's not even married, and so working with me, it's not going to be in your best interest if you haven't been married that long, right? So I said, well, get the book, definitely get the book, and read it and start applying some of that stuff, and you'll find some success. And then like a week later, he replied to another one of my videos going, "Hey, can I get more information on this?" I'm like, "Well, have you read the book yet?" And he's like, "Oh no, I haven't done that yet." It's like people are out there looking for some kind of magic pill. The magic pill is to get out there and actually take some action and do the work. So my best recommendation for guys is to grab the book and start reading it. Like, at least take some action there. And then as you're reading the book, apply it. Start applying it. Don't just read the book and put it on the shelf and think that you fix things. You haven't. You have to actually take action. Um, Nothing's going to work unless you start moving the needle a little bit. And the quickest way to do that would be to go get my book.
Action makes perfection. You just got to keep going. Try again until you get the right formula. Paul, it's a blessing to have you on the show today. I want to say thank you for sharing here on the Dead America podcast. And would you tell people one more time how to get a hold of you and get connected with you?
Yeah, so I have a blog. It's called fixdeadbedrooms.com. And I post there almost daily. I don't really post on Sundays, but I post there daily, just various tips and tricks on how to fix your mindset, how to rebuild that attraction. So that's a good free resource for people. And then if they go to that website, they can find my social medias, they can find my podcast, they can find my books, they could book a call with me. So go to fixdeadbedrooms.com and you can find all my stuff there.
Paul, I like what you're doing. Keep doing it, sir.
All right. Thanks, Ed. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us today. If you found this podcast enlightening, entertaining, educational in any way, please share, like, subscribe, and join us right back here next week for another great episode of the Dead America podcast. I'm Ed Waters, your host. Enjoy your afternoon, wherever you might be.